Yes, happy to do so, President Deere. We'll begin with Director Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Scott Houston.
Here.
Director Harold Williams.
Here.
And President John Deere.
Here. So we have all 5 directors have answered the roll call, so we have a quorum. Ask, have you led the pledge?
What's that?
Have you ever led the pledge?
I did a month or two ago.
Okay, well, come on. Harold, why don't you lead us in the pledge of allegiance? Director Williams,
Be happy to do that.
lead the pledge.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag of the greatest nation on earth, in my opinion. Ready, begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to its republic.
nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, is there any public comment?
President Deere, we have not received any requests for public comment. However, we do have several members of the public that have joined us today. If there's anybody that would like to speak under public comment, please let us know now. President Deere, I do not see or hear anybody.
Sure, we'll go on to item 5. Are there any presentations?
President Deere, staff has no presentations for you today.
Item 6, items too late to be agendized.
Yes, President Deere, we do have one item. This item has been distributed to all the board members that are here and present today. We've also included it within the comment section within the virtual meeting, and of course emailed copies to each of the members of the board of directors. It's important to note that under California Government Code, Section 54954.2, our board meetings are governed by the Brown Act. And per the Brown Act, we are required to agendize any action item before this board and before this board has a chance to discuss this item. There are 2 exceptions to that rule. The first would be under an emergency, which is limited to work stoppages or crippling disasters. The second is an exception if the body finds by a 2/3 vote of those present, or less than 2/3 if the board is present by unanimous vote, that there is a need to take immediate action on an item, and the need for action came to the attention of the local agency subsequent to the posting of the agenda. West Basin staff has been working on an item related to Southern California Edison's direct access service offer and an approval of an agreement with Direct Energy. As I mentioned, I did provide these materials to all of you, and we have placed it online. Staff has been working diligently throughout all of last week to analyze the potential action that could be before you. We have prepared all of the materials, and according to the information that we've received from staff, the board would want to consider that today for possible action later today by staff to execute an agreement, or possibly tomorrow. And for this reason, after consulting with legal counsel over the weekend, we are bringing this item before you. It's my understanding that a vote is required in order to place this item on the agenda. And I do have legal counsel here to discuss this item if you have any questions.
I'd like to put this on the agenda.
I'll move.
Moves there a second?
I'll second.
Director Houston seconds. Any questions or discussion? I'll just state that I was called earlier today by our general manager, and we discussed the matters. And so I'm aware of it also, and I concur with the action. Anyone else have comments? All right, please call the roll.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Director Houston.
Yes.
Director Gray.
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes.
President Deere.
Yes, and item 8, the item is now agenda item 8C for today.
Thank you very much.
I'll go to item 7, consent calendar. Motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move it.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Director Houston makes the motion, Director Williams seconds. Any discussion on any of the consent calendar items? All right, let's call the roll on consent calendar.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Director Houston.
Yes.
Director Gray.
Yes.
Director Williams,
Yes.
Director Deere.
Yes, and the consent calendar is approved in its entirety. That was very efficient. We'll go to 8A.
Yes, thank you very much, President Deere. Item 8A is a resolution number 02221153, and it is regarding the reauthorizing Brown Act provisions under virtual meetings to allow West Basin Municipal Water District to continue having its virtual meetings for the month of March. And for this item, we do have our legal counsel here, Steve O'Neill, to present and answer any questions.
Sure. As you know, back in the fall, the governor and the legislature passed AB 361, which allowed for the continuation of the remote meetings with the relaxed Brown Act standards based upon a finding that we were in a declared state of emergency. The resolution that's before you, AB 361 also required any public agency that's seeking to avail itself of the relaxed Brown Act meeting standards must make a finding that's set forth in the resolution about social distancing recommendations being in place and under declared state of emergency. And the finding that is in your report is that meeting in person could constitute a health hazard to those participants. Thus, the resolution allows us and the board to continue to meet remotely with the relaxed Brown Act standards for another month. As you may recall, we do this every month because the statute requires the finding be made every month. So that's what's before you today. But I will add to the report that it looks like Governor Newsom may be poised to terminate the declared emergency, which could result in as early as April 1st as going back to regular Brown Act meetings. And recall that that doesn't prevent an agency from having remote meetings. It's just it's a little more restrictive in that certain requirements must be met. The remote meeting must be available to the public. There must be a quorum of the agency board meeting in person or within the district's boundaries. So as you know, it's a little more restrictive than what we've been being allowed to employ for the past 2 years. So getting back to the topic at hand, my recommendation is that you adopt the resolution on AB 361, which allowed for another at least 30 days of these remote meetings.
Does this mean the meetings can be remote, but you have to be in the district when you're in the meeting?
When we go back, if we go back to regular Brown Act meetings, there are those restrictions in the Brown Act.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll move it.
Second.
Houston makes the
second.
motion, 2 seconds. Director Gray, you have something?
No, second it, yeah, thank you.
He beat you to it this time. We'll get you next time. Okay, any other comments or
Okay.
questions? No one? All right, please call the roll on the motion.
Director Alvarez,
I'm going to vote yes, but I'm glad to hear that the governor is thinking about retracting the emergency order, and this will be the last time I'll vote yes on this.
Director Houston,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Director Gray, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Thank you.
Director Williams,
Yes.
President Deere.
Yes, and the motion's passed. Well, go to item 8. What are we on? B. Metropolitan Water District selection of chairman, committee chairs, West Basin response. Okay,
President Deere, the item before you, item 8B, which begins on packet page 60, is related to the selection of Metropolitan Water District's committee chairs and vice chairs, actually. This item was requested by Director Harold Williams to be placed on the agenda for the board's consideration of a draft response letter. As noted in the memorandum, the selection of Metropolitan Water District's chairs and vice chairs has been discussed but never approved actually over the course of 1 year. However, with recent actions taken by Metropolitan Water District beginning last November to alter and change the committee structure, the discussions at Metropolitan Water District have taken a different turn. As noted within the board memo, Metropolitan Water District did realign and create new committees. This includes an underserved communities committee, an imported water committee, a conservation and local resources, one water committee, and a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. In doing so, Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors actually amended the admin code so that each of those committees could take action specific to the jurisdiction provided under those committees. However, without the election or selection of the chairs and vice chairs, Metropolitan Water District's new committee structure really cannot move forward as far as hearing these items. Recently, at the Metropolitan Water District's February 8th board meeting, there was a great deal of discussion specifically related to the selection of the chairs and vice chairs. This was actually heard throughout public comment. There were several members of the public to discuss this item and urge the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors to adopt the chairs and vice chairs as provided by Chairwoman Gloria Gray. And then, of course, Chairwoman Gray also addressed this at the conclusion of that to request that this slate be approved by the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors. This discussion has continued on for some time. I think most people would agree that rhetoric back and forth has enabled the board to move forward with the slate at this time. Though West Basin staff and of course its Metropolitan Water District directors do believe that there is a path forward. On February 9th, after the February 8th board meeting, Director Williams expressed his concerns related to the actions and rhetoric directed toward Chairwoman Gloria Gray and requested that West Basin consider sending a letter in response. This draft letter has been reviewed by, of course, Director Williams, and it begins on packet page 63. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would be happy to read the recommendation. Director Harold Williams has requested that the West Basin Municipal Water District Board of Directors consider sending a letter to the Metropolitan Water District Water Board of Directors addressing the selection of the committee chairs and vice chairs and the recent Metropolitan Water District actions and rhetoric directed towards Metropolitan's Chairwoman Gloria Gray.
We have the letter in front of us. Do we have a motion to adopt it, approve it, be sent?
I will make that motion.
Okay. All right. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Any discussion? Anyone? I think the matter's been discussed in committee, but do we have anything more we have to say? It's a good letter. It's a good letter, I think. At any rate, we'll call the roll on the motion to approve.
Mr. Chair. Hi. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Director Gray, thank you. I wanted to thank Director Williams for initiating this letter. I looked at the letter and I think it's signed by, is it signed by the entire board? Is it signed by the president of the board?
President.
Okay.
Board president.
And, all right. Okay, but I just want to express my appreciation for Director Williams initiating the letter. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Please call the roll on the item.
Yes, Director Alvarez,
Yes.
Director Houston,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Yes.
Director Williams,
Yes.
and President Deere.
Yes, and the letter is approved, and I'll sign the original copy and see that it's mailed to the proper persons.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're now on item 8C, which was added to the agenda.
Thank you, President Deere. As previously mentioned, this item has been handed out in hard copy. It is included within the comment section for those that are joining us virtually. The item 8C is listed as acceptance of Southern California Edison's direct access service offer and approval of agreement with Direct Energy. And for this presentation, we do have our Executive Manager of Engineering and Operations, Barka Messerlian, here for the presentation.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, President Deere, directors. As the title suggests, this action item we are recommending today is twofold, basically. First part of the recommendation is to enroll West Basin into a Southern California Edison program that would provide the district, potentially provide the district with cost-saving opportunity related to our electrical expenditures. The second part of the recommendation is to execute an agreement with a wholesale energy provider to lock in a fixed energy generation rate for a period of time and work with them to initiate the program for West Basin. A little bit of a background, Southern California Edison, or SCE, Direct Access Program is an electrical supply service option that allows SCE customers such as West Basin to purchase electricity from a wholesale energy supplier. These wholesale energy suppliers are commonly known as electrical or electric service providers. Purchasing electric supply from an ESP or electric service provider will allow West Basin to pay its SCE electrical service invoices at a fixed energy generation rate for a period of time, which in turn could provide West Basin with the opportunity to reduce energy costs over the next few years. The program, the DA program or Direct Access Program, the participation in that program is offered to SCE customers, those who are interested, on an annual basis and based on availability. And it's done through a lottery system. So customers would have to submit an application and then get notification after a period of time if they are selected. We, West Basin, continuously look at opportunities to optimize our energy use and to reduce cost where we can. And as part of that, back in July in 2021, we submitted an application to enter into the lottery system for the Direct Access Program. Earlier this month, we got notifications that we got preliminary acceptance, and what that basically triggered is an effort between the wholesale energy provider, in this case, Direct Energy Business, and SCE and West Basin working together to see what the cost benefit could be with us potentially fixing the generation rate, the energy generation rate. And so there was some data exchange and some analysis performed. Some of the details of the analysis provided in attachment A in several tables. But table 1 that you see before you can go back to table 1 in the body of the report basically summarizes the analysis provided in attachment A. It essentially looks into 3 different scenarios. If we were to enter into this agreement for 1 year, if we were to fix our generation charges as part of this program for a 1-year period, we're not really saving much. But if we enter in a 2-year term agreement, we would save potentially up to close to $800,000, $772,000. But if we did it for 3 years, we could potentially save up to $2.3 million in energy costs. So that analysis was completed earlier this week, and there were multiple reviews conducted, both on the agreement and the analysis itself, some questions back and forth. And ultimately, upon conducting the reviews and the legal reviews of the agreement itself, we are here before you to ask the board to approve West Basin enrolling into the program, and as part of that, execute an agreement with Direct Energy Business. A copy of the agreement is provided in attachment B. execution of the agreement will basically lock in the energy generation rate that is available at this time. And the rates do change. It's almost similar as locking in your mortgage rate. So the execution will depend, when we execute the agreement, we'll basically could have different rates. And traditionally, and looking into the future, staff expects the rates to only increase based on current events and based on what traditionally has occurred. With that, I have with me our operations manager, Uzi Daniel, and also Jason Kung, our operations analyst, who's been heavily involved in this process and has a lot of details that could offer. We can answer any questions that the board will have. But first, I'll read the recommendation. The recommendation is staff recommends that the board authorize the interim general manager to accept SCE's offer to enroll in the DA program and enter into a commodity master agreement with Direct Energy for the supply of electrical service for a 3-year term at a fixed generation rate of $81.87 per megawatt hour. With that, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, I'm confused. Why does the energy company, first of all, why do they want to do this? Well, what are they getting out of it?
It's an opportunity. It is an opportunity for SCE customers to enroll in Porter and reduce their costs. And it is something for the energy providers to see if your usage and cost is pretty constant, then it makes sense for you to save some money. It is something that's offered and approved by the CPUC as a benefit to potential SCE customers.
Odd, because they've got us anyway. They're a public utility. We have to buy from them. I don't see what they're benefiting from it other than, I'm not against doing it. It sounds like a reasonable thing for us to do from our point of view. The other question is, this company, the name of the company we're describing,
Direct Energy.
Name of Direct Energy. Is that a subsidiary of Edison, or is that an independent company, or what?
It's not a subsidiary of Edison. It's a separate company. Edison purchases energy from different wholesale agencies. This happens to be one of them. As part of this process, we checked with other agencies that are enrolled in this program. We mentioned a couple of them in the report. We checked with Urban Ranch Water District. They have, I think it was 90 accounts enrolled in this program. They have a different wholesale energy provider. And then also, we were informed that also Orange County Water District has a GWRS program enrolled in, has their accounts enrolled in this program as well.
Questions? Board members? Dr. Williams?
Yes, thank you. My question has to do with whether or not Edison is getting credit for this because this is a renewable energy source or what? Or does it matter?
The sources are mixed. There's some renewables and other sources, but whether it's coming from SCE or coming from the wholesale agencies to SCE, they're both subject to have a portion of their energy generation from renewable energy, renewable sources.
Other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Director Houston makes the motion. Is there a second? Director Williams seconds. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Director Alvarez,
Yes.
Director Houston,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes.
And Director President Tier.
Yes, and the motion is approved. And let's save some money. That's great. Let's go on now to item 9, information calendar, 9A.
Yes, President Deere, we do have 3 individual information calendar items. The first of which was the West Basin Budget Workshop schedule, and this is slated for an oral update. Last week, I believe it was on Friday, you might have noticed that you received several requests for different meetings, specifically related to the West Basin's Budget Workshop calendar. And I think that there was some confusion as far as meetings that had been canceled and then, of course, readjusted. And I had a chance to kind of look into this, and I wanted to just to briefly explain why you saw those meeting cancellations and, of course, new meetings, and then, of course, get the feedback from the board of directors to see if we wanted to alter or change that schedule. In an original presentation, which I believe was delivered on January 19th, it was discussed that we would have several different budget workshops specifically related to the program budgets. At that time, our staff scheduled all of those meetings that coincided with our committee meetings and scheduled those meetings at a specific time. I believe it was 10 a.m. The slide that was presented to you at that January 19th F&A committee presentation just had the dates, but it also identified the specific committee meetings. So March 9th, the E&O committee, March 10th, the Public Information and Education Committee, March 15th is the Water Policy and Legislation Committee, and March 16th is the Finance and Administrative Committee. At that time, when that presentation was provided to the committee and board, we did not have our committee structure. As such, we didn't know what the specific committee meetings would be, but we intended for these meetings to coincide with those committees. This presentation was again provided at our first meeting of budget workshop, which took place on February 23rd. Within that presentation, it was page 33 and 34. Again, the concept of presenting the individual programmatic budgets in their policy committee would make the best sense. And of course, we had those 4 meetings outlined there: March 9th, the E&O committee, March 10th, the PI committee, March 15th, Water Policy and Ledge Committee, and March 16th, the Finance and Administrative Committee. So last Friday, to adjust and make these meetings all at the same time as far as when those committee meetings were made, they canceled the original placeholders and they scheduled the committee meeting budgets. So currently, staff is prepared to present the individual programmatic budgets at their individual committees. So there'll be a direct correlation between the conversation and the information that's provided. That's what staff is currently planning to do, and that is what is currently on your calendar. However, I do recognize that there was a little bit of confusion in the way that was rolled out, and West Basin staff is standing by to take direction by the committee and board. If we want to move forward as planned, we're happy to do that, but if you want to adjust, we can do that as well. And I do have our executive manager of finance here, and we can take any feedback that we get from the board. And with that, Mr. President, I'm just happy to answer any questions and take down your feedback.
Are there any questions on the board? Scott?
Question. Well, first of all, yeah, I was really confused when all of a sudden these budget workshops that were slated at certain dates and times were canceled, and then all of a sudden, I guess, put onto the committees. I still think that these budget workshops should probably be standalone meetings, so in order to ensure that directors have the opportunity to participate, because not everybody can make all the committee meetings, and the committee meetings unfortunately get stacked with so much stuff in them sometimes. I don't understand how we're going to be able to donate the time needed to the budget work. And I'm even looking right now in my personal calendar from what we had on it, which was just example was budget workshop for E&O was going to be on Wednesday the 9th in the morning, and then later E&O's in the late afternoon. So if you guys are going to consolidate those, and again, we don't even get a chance to get through every item half the time on these committees anymore. I just don't think it's going to work. So I think that a better avenue is to have the budget workshops on their own if you can get a quorum. And then of course the board members, if we're able to attend, they can attend or not. But we were trying to get these expanded, and now they got contracted again, and there was no input from the board. It just so happened. So that's why I think we're having this talk right now. So I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but that's my position.
Other questions or comments?
I agree with,
Go ahead, Harold.
I'm sorry. Was I recognized?
Yeah, you are now.
Yeah, I would agree with Director Houston. Budget workshops should stand alone.
We have one standalone on the 30th of March. I know. Desi?
I think that it's a great idea to have the policy committees go over budgets and make recommendations, but in terms of the budget workshop, I was really kind of shocked when I saw that, boom, all these workshops were now incorporated into the policy committee. I think that Director Houston made some good points, that there are other items at the policy committee level. The budget workshops require quite a bit more discussion, and I think they should be standalone. So I'm not supportive of the direction that kind of was taken. I would like to see standalone budget workshops.
What else?
And then let me add on that.
Go ahead.
I'm not married to what those previous dates were. I think if staff needs to re-poll the board, if you will, to figure out what might work or have quorum, and maybe they don't have to always be in the morning, or they could be in the afternoon, or what have you. So, I'm not sure where that's going to go, but it seems like we're in a position now to say the budget workshop should be standalones like they were planned. It's just a matter of figuring out the dates.
Okay, I will work with our admin team to reschedule all of those. We will look to try to standardize it somewhat so that people can adjust their calendars, but we'll work with all of your calendars. So we'll try to find that soft spot. It's because of our regular committee schedule and then of course board meeting schedule, it's sometimes difficult, but we will find time and we will present these at standalone budget workshops.
Is there a preference to possibly having the budget workshops on a Saturday morning? I like that idea, but
Saturday morning workshops.
Well, you stand by yourself.
I think you probably do. Okay.
So I will work with staff. I've heard it loud and clear, standalone meetings, and we'll get those rescheduled.
All right, thank you for the information. We'll go on now to item. Gloria, did you have anything you wanted to say about the budget workshop schedule?
No, I agree with the comments. Thank you, though. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. We'll go to 9C then, the water facility monthly operations update.
President Deere, there is one item under
I'm sorry,
9B.
item B, I skipped item B by mistake.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. This item was included on our engineering and operations agenda on February 19th. Unfortunately, due to time, this item was not heard. The item before you is 9B, all sites bulk chemical storage tanks replacement project, Chevron and the Torrance Refinery. For this presentation, we do have Joel Blair, our senior engineer.
Thanks, EJ. I assume you can hear me and can see my screen. Good afternoon, President Deere and directors. This information item 9B, starting on page 65 of the agenda packet, is intended to update you on the planned next steps for the all sites bulk chemical storage replacement project. This is essentially a multi-year program to replace chemical storage tanks throughout West Basin facilities. This program is underway. Some tanks have already been replaced. Others are being designed or are currently in fabrication. Today's focus is mainly on the tanks at the Chevron nitrification treatment plant or the Chevron facility, and at the Torrance Refinery water recycling plant or the Torrance Refinery facility, which are next on the priority list. On page 70 of the agenda packet, we have a general summary of the components of chemical tank systems. As we replace these tanks, we are not just replacing the storage tank itself, so not just the bulk chemical tank, for example, in this picture right here. We are also replacing the containment pads, that is the berm that contains the tanks, the feed pumps, electrical controls, for example, measurements on how full the tanks are, And we are also replacing carrier piping and injection ports. So the carrier piping that takes the chemical to whatever treatment process we are trying to add chemical to, and the injection port itself is where we inject the chemical. Oops, excuse me. So in these photos over here on the left, we can see some storage tanks. You can see a concrete berm surrounding the tanks. In the middle photo, we have a chemical feed pump. So these are actually the pumps that take the chemicals to the designated locations. And on the right, we have some carrier piping. These photos are from the Chevron facility. And you can see this themed magenta is sodium bisulfite. So sodium bisulfite tanks, sodium bisulfite chemical feed pumps with some of the piping here. And also on the right, the various pipes, and we can see the magenta sodium bisulfite. Turning to page 71 of the agenda packet. This is the northern portion of the Edward C. Little facility. This slide is intended to show you that we are currently in the process of replacing tanks. We have a completed tank here. As you may recall, we have those big sodium hypochlorite tanks, the tall ones. They were 35 feet tall. We replaced 4 30,000 gallon tanks. That project is now completed. And you may also recall that we are currently replacing a day tank, also for sodium hypochlorite. This was presented in the September regular board meeting, and it's a smaller tank out here. So you can see on the northern portion, we have an alley here, chemical alley, that has our major tanks. And interspersed throughout the facility, we have smaller tanks that also need attention, replacement, or rehab. At the Edward C. Little facility, we have approximately 34 tanks. So that's 4 that have been replaced as part of this program. And we have 1 upcoming that is being taken care of right now. Moving on to page 72 of the agenda packet, we can see that there's a visualization here. This shows the number of tanks throughout West Basin facilities. If you can try to understand what I'm trying to show here, we have all the tanks at the Edward C. Little facility here in dark blue. We have 29 future tanks that have not been addressed yet. We have the 4 tanks that were the large sodium hypochlorite tanks that are complete. And we have 1 upcoming tank, that sodium hypochlorite day tank. So this figure shows how much of a bite we've taken at the tanks at the Edward C. Little facility. And overall, in this visualization, we can see approximately 64 tanks that need replacement throughout the district. At the Torrance facility, we have 7 future tanks that will need to be taken care of. And we have 6 upcoming tanks that we are currently working on. One of those is a sulfuric acid tank. This is currently in design. And we also have 5 tanks. These 2 sets of tanks at the Torrance facility and at the Chevron facility, those are the subject of this presentation. So we have 64 tanks total, and the next bite we'd like to take at the tanks that need replacement are the 5 tanks at Torrance and the 5 tanks for the Chevron facility. You can see that if we do take care of the Chevron facility tanks, that will actually take care of all the tanks at Chevron, and we will have all brand new tanks there and no other tanks to take care of. For the Carson facility, we are currently working on the phase 2 expansion. As part of that project, we will be taking care of 2 20,000 gallon sodium hydroxide tanks, but in the future, we will have 10 tanks to address. Are there any questions at this point before I move on to the next slide?
Any questions? Guess not.
Thank you. So the drivers for these next tanks, which are the highest priority tanks at this moment, we have tanks at both the Torrance and Chevron facilities that have failed. We have others reaching end of useful life. We desperately need some safety and compliance improvements to protect our operators and to make sure we are being compliant, both on the environmental and on the safety side. And also, you can see in this graphic on the bottom, we can see that both sites have very similar tank chemical storage tank configurations. So we do think there are efficiencies that we can gain from designing these and executing these projects concurrently. In more detail, we have these yellow tanks up here that are both two 8,000-gallon sodium hypochlorite tanks. So identical tanks, similarly configured. Below that, we have in green one 3,000-gallon sodium hydroxide tank at both sites. And on the very bottom, we have two 2,500-gallon sodium bisulfite tanks. These temporary tanks that are called out here, those are actually taking care of tanks that have already failed. So at Torrance, next to the temporary tank, we have this one sodium hydroxide tank that had already failed and is not in use. So we have been using this temporary tank that has been operating fine for the last 4 or 5 years, but needs to be replaced with a more permanent solution. Similarly, at the Chevron facility, we have one of these larger sodium hypochlorite tanks that has failed. And so we have this larger temporary tank that has taken its place. Our next step. So this is on page 74 of the agenda packet. We will be preparing a request for proposals. This is for design engineering services. This will go out on the street to anyone who is qualified to bid on it. The scope of work here will be 2 discrete packages, one for Torrance and one for the Chevron facility. We do want to separate out the 2 packages so that we can execute them at different times if necessary, and also as we work with the refineries on when it would be best to maybe schedule shutdowns and execute the work. We do want discrete packages. And also for cost recovery processes. We will be tracking the costs on these and trying to recover the costs from the respective refineries. So we do want to separate some of the costs. But at the same time, we will be trying to be efficient, and we will be preparing one set of fabrication specifications. So we will be ordering tanks from the same vendor to the same spec, and they will go to both facilities. Similarly, we will have overlapping construction technical specs and also construction support services. So this is the entire scope of what we would be asking from our engineering support firm. So our next step is to put this RFP out on the street, get proposals, and come back to you with a recommendation to award the design services contract. That will likely be in April or May of this year. We will include an updated budget for that. In fact, you will actually see the budgets in the budget workshops before we get to that point. Currently, we are working off some 2017 budget estimates for the entire chemical replacement program. And that program was originally $13.5 million to replace all the tanks within the district. We've taken off $2 million because we've carved off $2 million to address those 4 sodium hypochlorite tanks at ECL. We pulled that off as a separate CIP item. That was 10067, whereas this overall program is CIP number 10093. So the current program is $11.4 million. This was the 2017 estimate. And for Torrance, that number was $2.5 million. And for Chevron, it was $1.5 million. I believe that is the end of this presentation, this info item. I'll gladly take any questions.
Do we have any questions? Oh, thank you for a very good presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good. That's 9B. We'll go on then to 9C. Water facility monthly operations update.
Thank you very much, President Gier. The last information that we have for you is item 9C, the Waterfield Facility Monthly Operations Update. And for this presentation, we do have staff members, Susanna Lee, our Senior Operations Engineer, Uzi Daniel, the Manager of Operations, and Frank Fuchs, a Supervisor of Water Recycling.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, members of the board and the public. And just if you turn to page 84, that will begin with our presentation. Yes. On page 85, as usual, we begin with the ops monthly update with the review of our influent water quality to ECL for the month of January. At the during the January board meeting, I did mention that we did have a secondary upset to the Hyperion July upset at the end of December, which pretty much lasts throughout the whole month of January and into February. And as I mentioned in the board meeting, this upset was caused by internal power outages, which may be related to the July sewage spill within the plant at Hyperion. The result of the power outage took down a couple of the clarifiers, which we haven't gotten confirmation with the completion of the repairs. We're still seeing fluctuations in water quality well into February. And as the graph shown, if you look at the graph toward the end on the right-hand side, that's showing the elevated water quality turbidity coming into the plant. The average turbidity at ECL was at 28 NTU, which is well more than double our historical average of 13 NTU. The influent water quality was as high as 150 NTU for the first few days of January, and even over to 200 NTU. In addition to high turbidity that we had to experience at the plant, the solids loading was also high as 44 and was averaged well into 50. And as well, we had elevated iron level. Even on the Hyperion side, they exceeded their total suspended solids level for the month of January. These compounding issues really provided like a challenge for ECL operations staff, resulting in higher solids generated. And what Uzi is going to be talking to you in conjunction with the solids hauling issues that we've been experiencing recently due to COVID-related and shortages of drivers, which really put a stress on our dewatering equipment and resulting in more extensive repair that is required. And it's also forced us to delay the barrier startup, which originally we had scheduled to start barrier up on January 5th. Unfortunately, we didn't get to start barrier up till January 27th. And right now we are still remaining to have a production of 3 MGD, which we had hoped to improve and increase to 5 to 6 right now. Our barrier production remains to be low at this point because we are continuously seeing the fluctuation in the water quality. And SUAS maintenance and operations staff has been constantly having to handle the membrane CIP cleaning as well as replacement of parts. Right now, we are anticipating another plant upset tomorrow. So staff is busy preparing and trying to lower set point within our plant. And as a side note, this 20 to 40 NTU water quality is not a sustainable conditions for existing membrane processes. And hopefully this will not become a foreseeable intermediate new normal. And as we look ahead, this may affect useful life of our assets. And for example, our membrane useful life that may change from the normal 5 years to shorter 3 to 4 years. So moving on to slide number 3, let me go 86. Thank you. Let me go over a few highlights on the maintenance side. Photo on the left shows the repair on the line leak on phase 5 auto strainer. As I mentioned, we are seeing very high turbid water and we're resulting to having higher and higher backwash water and more frequent backwash requirements, which result in leakage of the pipe. The photos in the middle show repair of a sulfuric acid line leak at the Union, which is underground, which did result in some sulfuric acid into some faults at ECL. And last but not least, the photo on the right is staff replacing filter cloth at one of our presses. This is filter press number 2, which in the coming month, I will be bringing to you some more photos that we're requiring to repair the filter press in some additional expensive way. With that, I will turn it over to Uzi, who will provide you with an update on the supply chain issues, and they're continuously creating operational challenges for us. Uzi?
Great. Thank you, Susanna. Next slide. Good afternoon, directors, members of the public. On page 87 of your packet, you'll see some of the supply chain issues we have discussed here. I think it's no secret, we've mentioned this before, it's all over the news that we have this very specific issue and how it has affected us. Long lead time for materials, things we've ordered, new membranes, valves, mixers, fuses, things. We do try to keep stuff on hand, but it's been a challenge to replace those. And in addition, even with the deliveries, a lot of that has to do with deliveries. Delivery cost of some things has tripled in some cases, going up even more. Other examples are the deliveries of our samples. We run about 34,000 samples through our lab, and a small portion of those go to contract labs, specialized labs. Those require us to have delivery services, and even those have had shortages of drivers, resulting in, thankfully, not compliance issues as we're able to schedule in advance, resample. But all of these play into some of the challenges. The unstable chemical prices, that has been another issue. Those are commodities. They go up and down. We've been working a lot with chemical vendors. We've been working a lot with other water companies. How are they doing it? Many of them are having to do the same thing, go to their boards, request some changes. And where in the past, the raw materials could give a forecast for at least a year in advance, would guarantee prices, sometimes for up to a year, 6 months. A lot of them are giving a month-by-month price update, and I'll speak to the chemicals a little more in a minute here. But again, it just lends to some of these issues. Susanna mentioned the buildup of solids. So in addition to having us receive some of these supplies in a delayed manner, getting those supplies out has been a challenge. And a couple things, a lot of that had to do with drivers. There's a shortage on truck drivers. What compounded this was during COVID, after the holidays, we all again saw the surge in COVID. We were down not only drivers, but suddenly a number of people who tested positive couldn't come in. And in one case, some of the facilities that receive our solids, they had so many people out and staff out with COVID that they had to shut down temporarily and couldn't receive it. So those are some of the things that West Basin, in addition, the entire industry is dealing with. And I might just take a side moment. We do come to seems like the dark picture, but I think this is a moment to celebrate small victories, as we like to say, with a lot of the operators. All of this, everyone has been impacted by COVID, no matter what industry you're in. There's always challenges within an industry that requires you to supply the public a safe and reliable source. And all of this done during times with upsets and whatnot. And we have a lot of recognition days. I want to give a shout out to operators. There's a lot of people, including our own staff here at West Basin Operations, the majority of which live within the district. So they take this very serious. When these are shortages, when these things occur, people are working weekends after hours to make sure that we can supply that safe, reliable amount of water to the district. And I think that's something to celebrate. And so the public can rest assured that that's something the operators take very serious. And through that process of brainstorming and creativity and how we solve some of these, we're also getting a chance to see what are some possible long-term solutions. What are things that we can change in the long run? Backup vendors, dual vendors, can we change policies, or do they exist where we can go out to bid and pick 1 or 2 vendors to do that? Can you have a side contract? What about temporary staff? Again, during COVID, even the temp agencies were short. but should we have a different pool? Should we have people that can be moved around? Establish consortium groups. There are those going on. We had a very nice meeting with the regulators. There were about 20 people involved. West Basin's fortunate that the regional board, EPA, DPH will meet with us annually. They are working on this too. They are very concerned. There's a lot of water industry that is having issues with supply chain. So there's a lot of different groups that are trying to come together and solve some of these problems. And one of the other ideas and solutions we're working on is even, do we go out to bid? Is there a risk? Do we extend some contracts? Do we rely on some of those folks guaranteeing us a price for the short term instead of the long term? And that would lead me to the next slide, please, which is on page 88 of your packet there. And that's related to chemicals. So when we have upsets, or even if we don't, we really rely on chemicals to treat water, whether it's drinking water or wastewater. And we have a current chemical contract. We did have to come back to the board. As mentioned, these are commodity prices. JCI is our vendor, as they are for a number of our fellow neighbor water districts around us. And they had to request that they could get a price increase. We did come to the board with that. And if there was an increase, another increase before the end of the contract that was considered reasonable, we would have to extend that one more time. So we are doing that one more time before the end of June. You will see the price increase listed there. JCI, we had to come back for 3 different chemicals. This time, only 2 of the commodities are going up. Again, they are being offered a month-by-month price advance notice. And we will see this until June. In addition, we will likely be coming to the board, go out for IFQs, try to extend our existing contracts with chemicals until December. And while December 15th seems like a peculiar date, one, it's because we are trying to have a certain amount of time where we could guarantee a price, where vendors would be willing to guarantee a price, where they would not want to give us such a high price if they're forecasting a year or 2 in advance. And also because we don't like to switch some of these very critical contracts right around the new year or December 31st. So we will be going out to collect the price increase or the cost from our chemical vendors and bringing that to the board next month. With that, I will request the next slide, please. Thank you. This is just back to our normal, usual updates, the environmental compliance activity. So far, despite a lot of these different upsets and us having to report and work with regulators, we have been violation free. We have gotten all our reports in on time. We have 2 compliance staff working very hard on the various permits to assure that they can get in all this information. And this is where it's fortunate that we have a good relationship with regulators. They know that we will disclose, that we're very transparent. West Basin has always been upfront with that, and it's helped us navigate through some of these challenging times. And that is something, again, a small victory to celebrate and for this board to be proud of. With the next slide, I will turn it over then to Frank Fuchs. Thank you.
Thank you, Uzi. Good afternoon, directors. This is our monthly update for potable water customer service that we provide purveyors within our service area, starting off with the Metropolitan Water District customer projects and shutdowns. I just wanted to highlight the Metropolitan Water District shutdown of the second lower feeder, which took place between January 18th and January 29th, was completed successfully by Metropolitan Water District. There was a significant amount of coordination effort that took place between Metropolitan Water District, Lomita, and California Water Service, with West Basin providing support with that coordination. There will be additional shutdowns scheduled in 2023 and also 2024, so we'll make sure to keep the board updated of that. And then also for the Title 22 Purveyor Service Program, the City of Inglewood and Manhattan Beach confirmed their participation for the following fiscal year, and sampling was scheduled for this month. Moving on to the next slide on page 91, please. And this is also our monthly update for the recycled water distribution system activities. This is the work that is implemented by Inframark, our distribution system operator. We did have one leak on an airbag in Carson in January. It was on Main Street, just south of the Dominguez Channel. It was a minor leak. It was a minor leak from a service line, and the work is still pending to replace the service line. So staff is working to schedule that work. There were a total of 135 water quality samples taken in January. There was one spot chlorination implemented in the city of Inglewood to increase chlorine residual, and a total of 862 dig alerts that Inframark responded to. And also our operations technician completed 33 site inspections in January. And the photographs on the bottom left are related to the leak on Main Street in Carson. On the left shows the initial response, and the next photograph is the repairs that took place to isolate the leak. The next two photographs are just related to air vacuum valve maintenance, and the one on the right is related to final paving that was implemented for a repair that was implemented in December. Moving on to the next slide on page 92, please. And this is a table of new recycled water connections. This is a table that used to be part of our overall write-up, and now we've included it here for reference. I wanted to highlight inspections for LA Southwest College, as well as the LA Stadium Development and the Inglewood Basketball Entertainment Center. So moving on to slide 93. Oh, I think we went to the wrong slide, 93. There we go. So staff has been working with LA Southwest College to inspect modifications to their irrigation and potable water systems. And these are photographs of inspections that took place in January. On the right, there's a new potable water pipeline that was installed. It was right next to a recycled water irrigation line, and that was inspected by the Department of Public Health as well as staff. And this site is anticipated to be connected in June of this year, and it will add approximately 60 acre-feet per year of recycled water demand. Next page, 94, please. And this is for Hollywood Park Retail. Staff has also been working with the developer of Hollywood Park. This is within the SoFi Stadium development. This is an outdoor mall that will use recycled water for irrigation. These are also photos of a new recycled water irrigation system that were inspected, and this site is anticipated to be connected in July of this year. Next page, please. This is page 95. And similarly in Inglewood, the construction of the new Intuit Dome, which is going to be the Clippers basketball arena, is underway. And staff have been working with the developer to work to supply recycled water to this site as well. And staff are also working to start conducting inspections of the water utilities that are being installed. And so on the right side, you can see there a photograph of a new potable water line that was recently constructed and inspected by staff as well. And this site is anticipated to be connected the end of 2023. Next slide, please. And this is a table of existing recycled water customers. These are customers that are already connected to the recycled water system but are undergoing modifications. And so staff is working with these customers to go through the Department of Public Health approval process. And I just wanted to highlight two sites that were inspected in January. The first is the Lakes Golf Course, and the next one is Center Street Elementary School in El Segundo. So next slide, please. And so this is photographs of the inspection that took place in January. These are new irrigation lines that are going to be used for areas in the parking lot area of the Topgolf, and we anticipate that they'll start using recycled water for this area in April. And then the next slide, please. And this is for Center Street Elementary School. The school essentially made modifications to the front area of the school where there's a drop-off lane, and they installed an entirely new irrigation system in this area. And so staff has been working with the contractor and with the Department of Public Health to conduct all the inspections at this site as well. So, and this is anticipated to be completed in June of this year. And next slide. And that concludes our report, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I have a question. Yes, Director, Chair. I have a question concerning when we cannot dispose of our solids, where do we go since we don't have our own wastewater treatment plant? So what do we do?
So we always find a place to dispose of them. The solids when they go to composting, there's various locations, composting locations, disposal locations, daily cover. What we've also had to do, and Susanna has some good information on this, is we've had to, when we get a backup, have vacuum trucks come out, vacuum out our clarifiers. And we either ask Hyperion to take them back, which occasionally they will be gracious and take some of those back. We also have an agreement now with LA County Sand Districts where we can haul it up there. That's used at a minimal basis because it is a little more costly, but it's something that we can do to rescue ourselves, but it's not a long-term solution.
Thank you.
If I may add, yeah, so what Uzi mentioned is that those are the pre-processed solids. So those are in around 5 to 7% solids solids. So the presses solids are normally up to 30%. So what we try to do is just minimize the impact, but it doesn't resolve all of the issues. So the solids, however, like ultimately whatever doesn't go out, it recirculate back to our back to the EQ basin, and so the solids does make it back to the pre-treatment, and so the problems is compounded. So we have more irons, we have more solids into our system. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'll ask.
You have a question?
Yeah, I think I'll ask a question or two really fast. And Uzi, you sort of alluded to this, but at the end of the day, with all these supply chain issues and so on and so forth, are we really looking at how we could buy extra, parts up front, extra units, extra whatever we might be able to anticipate we can't get a hold of? Are you guys looking at that just like we would not normally do because we do it a lot of just in time?
Right. And that's a great question. I'm sure a lot of people, the public has that. We do that. We do what we call toolboxes. It's a part of the asset management system. But as you can imagine, there's a limit by which we might do that, or at what cost. And those are policy decisions or decisions to come up with. Do you keep extra valves around that you may need, but that cost $60,000. You obviously don't just buy 10 of them. So we do really try to balance some of these things and weigh how critical they are. And anything that is quite easily kept on site, doesn't spoil or whatnot, or let's say be a technology that's obsolete within 2 years, we do try to keep some of those extra supplies on hand. And that's kind of even what's been interrupted. We might have normally done that, and there's a backlog. So far, so good, but it's occasionally it gets a little precarious.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Other questions? Very good. Thank you very much. That takes care of item 9. We'll go to item 10. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
I'll receive and file. We have 14 items. Let me ask my colleagues if they want to pull any items out for individual discussion of these 14 items.
I have a question, a clarification.
Go ahead.
At the committee meetings, the policy committee meetings, they're scheduled as special board meetings, but there's no action taken there that binds the full board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So on things like the monthly financial report, which is the warrant, when do those get formally approved?
I'd have to defer that to legal counsel.
The monthly financial report is a report that I don't think it is before. Is it put before the board for approval? I don't think so.
Not as an action.
So we, as a board, never approved the warrant, payment of the warrant.
Payment of the warrants, I believe, let me go back. I think that was on your consent.
Placed on under consent, but it's listed as an information item under our F&A committee, correct?
My recollection is in the past, the warrants have been on consent and approved on consent.
Well, and I don't think that I've ever seen it in a year I've been here. So I think it might be worthwhile to, typically in most agencies that I'm familiar with, the warrant list is put as a consent calendar item, and then anybody can pull it off if they want to address any particular issue on the warrant list. I've never seen us approve the warrant, so it just seems like whatever payments the district's made have not gone out with the consent and approval by the board.
Not the approval. Our current process, as far as I'm aware of, has been that it's always been presented at each Finance and Administrative Committee. It is listed under the information. It's a regular update item where they go through it and they respond to any questions that we have. Once that process takes place, it does get placed into our receive and file, where of course any board member can pull the item and we can obviously represent that item. But
just for clarification, it's, the first question I asked was the committee meetings are special board meetings, but the understanding is that no action taken at the committee meeting binds the board. So that's been very clear. Then on the warrants, they're kind of embedded under the financial report in the information calendar. But that's the information calendar has a whole series of things. It's there for information purposes. It's not for the board to act on. So warrants, at least from what I can tell for the past year, have not been approved by the board. They've been paid. I'm assuming that those checks have gone out, etc. But they haven't been paid by the board. So for consideration, I think that the warrants ought to be taken out and presented as a consent calendar item, the typical way it's done, and that the board does approve payment of all of the district bills.
Good point. You have a comment, Dr. Williams?
Nope.
So we will, in the future, we'll do it that way or find out what the most appropriate way is for us to do it. Okay.
yes, President Deere, I'm getting word that it is actually included within our admin code or section 4-4104, and I'll work with legal counsel. We'll bring this back to explain what it states within our admin code, and then of course we'll take feedback from the committee and board as far as how you'd like it presented in the future.
Okay. Item 10, receive and file any other items specifically that you want to pull? Anyone? Is there a motion to approve, receive and file all of item 10, 1 through 14?
I'll move it.
You're making the motion, you're a second? I'll make the second. The motion is made and seconded to receive and file items 10, 1 through 14 in its entirety. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Yes. Director Alvarez?
Yes.
Director Houston?
Yes.
Director Gray?
Yes.
And thank you very much, Director Gray. Director Williams?
Yes.
President Deere?
Yes. And that motion is passed. We're now on the general manager's activities report, item 11.
Yes, thank you very much, President Deere. I want to run through just a handful of items and highlight some of the work that West Basin staff has been doing. First and foremost, the Southern California Edison Direct Access Service offer that was heard today. I just want to recognize the efforts of several members of our staff, Jason Kung, Uzi Daniel, Barkev Masurlian, and of course our legal counsel, both Martin and Steve. As we mentioned, this item was worked on quite a bit last week, but then of course it was worked throughout the weekend in order to bring that item for you, and we think it's a great opportunity to save some money, so I did want to highlight that. Second.
Before you highlight that, I just want to make sure Director Alvarez notes that we are saving money on something. Thank you.
Secondly, and I think for those of you who are in the room, notice it, but we do have a new audio and visual equipment here. We've had it now for the past several meetings. We're trying to work, obviously, with still the virtual meeting aspect. But throughout these meetings, both West Basin admin staff and of course myself, we're constantly checking with others to make sure that our audio is on spot. And of course, we receive feedback from the public as well. And so I want to just say thank you to everybody on the admin and IT side because it has provided, I think, a vast improvement as far as the audio goes. And of course, we've also heard from Craig, our West Basin guru out in the community, and he said that it's also better on his end. So I want to acknowledge IT and our admin. The next item that I wanted to highlight is an item that was actually pulled from our agenda, so I don't want to get too much into it as far as the detail goes, but I did want to highlight the West Basin staff has continued to work with California Water Service Company on the agreements. We did pull the PV agreement. There is a rate issue for the golf course that we're going to continue to work on, but we plan to bring that back as soon as possible. And then, of course, the Carson expansion project. Again, I don't want to worry anybody. Cal Water Services contribution to both of those projects are on target, and we feel like we're going to cement those with these agreements, but we did want to work that out. And as I mentioned at committee, we didn't want to bring anything forward if anything of substance had been changed or would be changed, and they're trying to work out some language related to the rate that the PV golf course would be paying. I'd like to briefly highlight some of the work that our ad hoc committees are doing because obviously it takes a great deal of time for you, of course, the board of directors to serve on these ad hoc committees where we're allowed to kind of drill in on some of the key issues. A lot of time gets placed into that. And so I want to say thank you to the board of directors, of course, but also our staff. The Brewer DeSalter ad hoc committee met on Monday, February 7th, and again on Thursday, February 24th. A great deal of progress is being made, and staff continues to work as hard as possible to do that as quickly as possible as far as the decommissioning of the Brewer DeSalter. We continue to work with our friends at the Water Replenishment District as well as California Water Service Company as far as the transfer of the lease and, of course, the transfer of the asset, the building there at the Brewer DeSalter site. Secondly, the City of Los Angeles Ad Hoc Committee did meet on Tuesday, February 9th. West Basin staff has continued to work with LA staff, both at LADWP and LA City Sanitation. And we are very hopeful as far as our long-term working relationship, and we're going to continue to work on potential agreements until they get done. So I wanted to assure everybody that, and of course, thank the members of the Ad Hoc Committee. Our Census Redistricting Ad Hoc Committee did meet on February 14th and again on February 25th. We have made tremendous progress as far as the proposed redistricting maps and district division boundary lines. West Basin staff feels that in the next week or two, we'll be able to outline the process in which we bring that back for the full board with the blessing and, of course, the support of the ad hoc committee. Just as a reminder, our deadline to submit our new boundaries is April 17th. We're ahead of our pace as far as getting that done, but we do need to hold 2 special meetings for hearings on those boundaries. And so we'll be working with our legal counsel to bring that forward. But I just wanted to highlight again the tremendous progress that is being made there. And with that, Mr. President, I think that wraps up my comments with one exception. I wanted to highlight, obviously, West Basin staff has been working very hard as far as promoting West Basin's water use efficiency programs throughout the West Basin service area. We're always looking to find opportunities to do so in the most cost-effective manner as possible. Our public information and education team came across a great opportunity to again promote this program utilizing Spectrum News. And on Friday, February 18th, we were very excited that a piece was run on their Spectrum One News and it ran throughout that day. I believe it ran at 5:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, 7:50, and again at 8:30. And we were lucky enough that the reporter that did so actually came out to the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility where they would introduce the segment, and it showed a Hawthorne resident that was engaged in the program and was getting up to $5 per square foot, which I believe was roughly $5,500 to remove the turf in her yard. We do have that video available today. I don't know if time permits, but if the board president would like to, we could show that video. We'll also be emailing that out with the individual segments as well. So that's at the discretion of the board president.
Does the board want to see the video now? I don't think we do we? This time?
I've seen it.
How long is it?
It's about 5 minutes, so it's considerable time. We'll email that out, and of course, we're going to be placing it on our website. But stuff like this, you know, I cannot thank staff enough, and especially when you see immediate results. And just the next day after we aired it, we had 9 active applications for grass replacement, which included 4 from the city of Carson, 2 from the city of Gardena, 1 from Hawthorne, 1 from Torrance, and 1 from Los Angeles. So we're very excited, obviously, to get this program out there, and we feel that this publicity is going to really help us out. So with that, Mr. President, that concludes the general manager update.
Item 12, general counsel's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll have a closed session today on a number of matters as identified on the agenda as item 14, existing litigation, San Diego versus Metropolitan, LA Waterkeeper versus West Basin, and Rastegar versus West Basin, as well as Government Code Section 54957, Public Employment General Manager, Performance Evaluation General Counsel. That concludes my report.
Do you have anything, any information on a change in your law firm that you want to tell us?
Yeah, I was going to discuss that in closed session.
Closed session? Okay, we'll do that. Item 13, AB 1234 reporting compliance. I've done mine by paper, but we'll ask my colleagues if they have anything they want to report orally.
I have none.
Hearing none? None, Director Gray? None?
None,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll go on to item 14, closed session. We're not going to convene to a closed session. Are we ready? Yeah, in there.
Here, or are we going in?
Let's go behind closed doors.
Aren't we? I don't trust this stuff out here.
about that as well.
Hi, Director Gray. Did I just hear you join us? Are we muted?
I didn't know who you were.
It's been that long. It is unmuted.
Director Gray, can you hear us okay?
Great meeting.
So,
The only one, and then we want it framed, right?
And you guys will send it up?
Yeah. We'll
should be a couple
send it
of years
over.
before you're president, though, I think.
I don't know if we already have. We're sending it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Sending it to? Oh, okay. They have it. From, we'll send it out probably tomorrow just to make sure. It's Friday.
However you deliver, yeah, it's Friday, so however you guys deliver it. Well, let me know when out.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
The other day.
Okay, well, Gloria, are you connected?
Yes, I'm connected. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call this regular meeting of the board to order and ask the attorney to report out what we did in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 to discuss several items of existing litigation. San Diego Water Authority versus Metropolitan, no reportable action on that matter. LA Waterkeeper versus West Basin, no reportable action on that matter. Rathstar versus West Basin, no reportable action on that matter. The board also met pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 to discuss public employment, general manager, and performance evaluation, general counsel. Instruction was given to staff, no reportable action. That concludes my closed session report.
Thank you very much. Now on item 13, AB 1234, reporting compliance. Are any board members wish to comply? Well, already went over that. I'm sorry, we went over that. We finished closed session. We'll go to item 15, director's comments, future agenda items. Are there any comments from directors? Director Gray?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Director Williams?
Well, no, thank you.
Director Alvarez?
No,
Okay, Director Houston?
Sure. Let's say just really quickly, a couple of things I had. One is I requested at the last meeting to be on the agenda an item about the future of our cameras and recording, et cetera. And actually, it wasn't really on the agenda today. I know you guys have changed the system and done some work, but it wasn't on the agenda. So I think I'm just going to re-request that for next month. And I think that's really unfortunate, but let's do it again.
Will do.
I don't know why that happened. In keeping with that, I am interested in, now that it sounds like the governor's emergency order is going to end at the end of March, what will be the plan for meetings going forward when that does end, with the public participation, the virtual component, et cetera. So I think that that needs to be explained to the board as well as so public can understand, because what I've heard on feedback, of course, is people do like the idea that we have these meetings online now and they can participate from wherever, at home, out in the world, as far as public is concerned. And this goes across the board to city councils too. Everyone's concerned that when these types of, the emergency order's over, people are going to have to come down to these types of meetings to participate. And I think different agencies are looking at different ways to address that. So I think that needs to be something we discuss. Do people have to physically always come in? Is it going to have this sort of a hybrid situation? Can they watch it live? All these things. I don't know. And so that needs to be determined at some point, probably the policy of this agency. So that needs to be agendized for discussion, as well as what is going to be, and maybe this comes up in committee, but with our staff, as things start to so slowly normalize, you know, where we're at with how many days a week people are coming in and so on and so forth. So quite frankly, we all know these things are moving really fast with the states, the school districts. So I think that we need to know where we're at come next month with the county and in alignment with the state, et cetera. So I'd like that to be a topic we discuss. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention, I mean, because I do see a lot of our staff are on this this meeting, and I appreciate that. And it's been a really tough 2 years. And so I'm very much looking forward to when we're starting to see each other again and starting to have people in this room again, like we used to. I'm looking forward to that. So I just really want to say that to our staff, that I'm anxiously awaiting for those days to start coming back. And I think that that's why I'm also asking how we're going to work out the hybrid component with work-life balance as we move forward, slowly reopening. So I'm looking forward to, again, that conversation, how, you know, what the updates are. Again, in a month from now, it seems like we'll be in another space. So anyway, those are my requests. And with that, I'll say thank you.
Okay, that concludes our director's comments. If there's no further business, we're adjourned.
Thank you. About time.
What time is it? 3:40, not too bad.